is there. Can somebody give a mic over there?
I can hear you. Yes. With a democracy, nothing else changes. Maybe it is. Maybe the opposition is going to sort of energize the ruling party to get these challenges out of the way and to get it done. Actually, we have come a long way with opposition, with a pluralistic society and a multi-party system. Agreed, agreed. For instance, I forgot to tell you that those labor charts I showed you, 84% of India's labor is actually in the unorganized sector. It's not counted in labor statistics. But still, we are muddling through. We will muddle through. I'm sure you will agree that we have come a little way and we have a long way to go, but we will get there. Yes. All I have to say is that the government that we have is sent to Delhi by us. So I think we need to change.
Yeah, we have the second question.
Thank you very much, Dr. Patra. Now on the 75th, after listening to your lecture, I have started feeling high, along with you and ready to take that. But see, I have got 30 years of, 28 years to be very precise. And I have just learned one thing, that change is the constant. Every day we are finding change. But then the last 2.5, 3 years, as you rightly said, COVID, and then now Ukraine, and then now what is happening in China, and then what is happening in the Middle East. Uncertainty has come. So this change with a lot of uncertainty, how it is impacting you as a central bank?
I'm glad you raised this question because in February, when RBI made its monetary policy announcement, I think February 8th, at that time we saw this economy growing at 7.8%, close to 8%, and the inflation rate to climb down to 4.5%, which is a Goldilocks state of affairs in February. In 2 weeks, the world changed. None of us had forecast that there will be a war in Ukraine. Adding to the COVID problems, adding to the supply chain disruptions, etc. So in April, the next policy review, the growth rate we projected fell 60 basis points. And the inflation rate climbed to 5.7% and then 6.7%. So that is the impact of the war. Just take the RBI's projections and you get an assessment of the war's impact. But have you noticed that in the second half of 2022, all economies, the US, UK, every economy, including China, has either contracted or small. India's data are not yet available, but RBI has projected that it will grow at 16% in the first quarter of this year, the financial year, April, June. And you will see the growth rate slowing down after that, but that will be what is called base effects. Last year's base will call it. The underlying momentum is 7-8%. So obviously, India is resilient to even the war. I'll give you a small incident of how topsy-turvy the world has become. You know that there are sanctions against people who are buying Russian oil. And this was reported to us by US Treasury. It turns out that an Indian ship, met a Russian tanker in mid-seas, picked up oil in the mid-seas, came to a port in Gujarat, processed it It was processed in that port and it was converted into a distillate which actually goes into making single-use plastic. The refined output was put back on that ship and it set sail without a destination. In the mid-seas, it received a destination, so it recharted its course, went to New York and landed its stuff. So that's the way the war works. It works in strange ways. And I would say, where the world is facing shortages of food, food security has become an issue in even advanced economies. We have buffer stocks. Wheat is at buffer norms, and rice is at 3 times the buffer norms. So, in some ways, we have done the right things. And I forgot to tell you also that the discounted oil has actually built up all our strategic reserves. We have strategic reserves of oil now. So, we are better prepared than many other countries. So, we will have to muddle along, but I think it will not be so difficult.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Yeah, that was, in a brief period, the Japanese government, realizing this is happening, started to give incentives for families to be bigger. But it failed. Urbanization, modernization takes its toll. Yes.
Thank you very much for this exciting talk. We all gained from this. But the challenges that you saw, that's very scaring actually. So the takeoff that we took with you, now it's the pilot is saying, please fasten your seatbelt, we are going to face rough weather, thing like this. So if I want to ask you, what is one strongest point of India that you would like to flag to overcome these challenges? And what is one worst weakness we have so that we will fail to meet the challenges? These are 2 things. Another thing I would like to say, that just out of my curiosity, we said somewhere that Indonesia will be the strongest currency in future. What's the reason and why not India? So these are good.
So I'll answer the second question first. It's all about purchasing power parity. I told you that there is this thing about GDP being measured in purchasing power parity terms. Indonesia will overtake India in terms of purchasing power parity, not necessarily in market exchange rate, but it will. No, India will slow down after 48. Indonesia goes on beyond that. Yeah, that's it. And the strongest one is that I think our strong point is we know where we want to be. I think so. But our weakest thing is we need to fashion how to get there. Is that it?
I have
Yes,
one
please.
question.
Microphone.
Yeah, I have one question here.
Oh, yes, sorry.
So my question is, if we'll see the debt to GDP ratio in China, that is much higher than India. So why not India follow the similar kind of route where your debt will be much more, where we can expand our manufacturing as well as export, as China is doing? What are some major issues that India is having to increase the debt to GDP ratio?
Increasing the debt to GDP ratio is the easiest thing in the world. You just have to borrow. But as I mentioned to you, the debt comes with a compulsion, and that you have to service it. If you start servicing higher and higher levels of debt, obviously the amount you have left for investing or for growing new assets will reduce. And eventually, it will kill you. It's called the debt trap. Because you have no money left for investing into your country's future. You're only paying the debt. That is why we have limits on our debt. not only the external debt, but also the internal debt. We actually exercise limits on that so that we don't allow it to go out of, like for instance, at the current time, if you put together the debt of the center and the state, it is close to 90% of GDP. Very little is left if out of your income, you're spending, let's say you have 100 rupees and you're spending 90 rupees on paying debt. What have you got to grow? How will you send your children to school? That's the issue.
So I see many hands, sir, but we will take two more questions in the interest of, the first question.
Thank you, sir. It was a wonderful presentation. So my question is, you just spoke about internationalization. Just I was remembering the OLI theory and also anyway. So my question is that in the internationalization, we have seen that particularly India has come out of many of the trade agreements, including the RCEP and also TPP. So in that context, when the many bilateral, multilateral trade agreements have been taking place, in that context, how do you see India to position itself in the trade negotiations? And second thing is that you are also speaking about, if I talk about the current account deficit. So current account deficit, we also adopted the procedure of export-oriented strategies, but we somehow failed to succeed in that. So in that context, will you also give the importance to the outward FDI also in that case? Thank you, sir.
Actually, we never adopted an export-oriented strategy. Our strategy till 1990 was import substitution, if you recall. Now, that is an inward-looking strategy. I mentioned that because what happens is that when you cut out the rest of the world, you close your mind to innovations, to new changes, new types of production, etc. So that, I think, was a fundamental mistake. I think everyone realizes that. That's why in 1980, we changed the strategy and became more outward-oriented. Because when you export, it's not just that you send your goods to another country and sell it for another currency. You also express your productivity. You provide a vent for surplus. When you get returns from that, you invest more into that technology. So now we have started. India will never be a fully export-oriented economy. We'll be a more balanced thing. But the government of the day seems to realize that there are levers there. So you can see that Make in India or the production-linked incentive scheme. These are, with the PLI scheme, we became an exporter of smartphones. We were an importer till recently. Okay, so that thing altered the whole, narrative. So I think that we need to focus on exports. On your question about outward FDI, in the past, we looked at joint ventures and wholly owned subsidiaries as an outlet for exports. Today, we don't look at them anymore like that. Today, it'll be proper to call our joint ventures and wholly owned subsidiaries not outlets for exports, but as Indian multinational. That's where we are today. It is growing very rapidly. So when in the RBI, we compiled this balance of payments. Earlier, we used to see FDI in India was 45, 50 billion. Now it is less. Not that the inflows have reduced, but outflows have become that more. Outward FDI. So manufacturing in India is finding better expression in other countries. That's the story. I think it's a good thing.
Okay, thank you, sir, for very nice presentation. I have one question, sir. We saw that actually, our economy is kind of self-sustained economy because our investment is being financed by our domestic saving. Also showed that per capita infrastructure investment is very low, $89 here in India. And there is an investment gap of 3.5%. It said that if we achieve a 6% growth rate, then probably can bridge this gap over a period of time. But for an economy which is self-dependent on its own saving to have investment, where can we get this investment when the saving is declining? We also saw saving is declining. From where can we get this investment to bridge this gap?
Nice question. So one thing is, as you realized, we are domestically financed. So all our efforts should go into raising the rate of domestic saving. Because that's what we're good at. We are a high saving society, and we need to do that. What do we need for that? We need higher incomes, because income is the most important determinant of saving. So we need to raise the level of income fast. And we also need better returns to our saving. For instance, the RBI cut policy rates to an all-time low during the pandemic. Actually, we reduced it to zero because we have a target of 4%. If you minus 4% from the policy rate, it's zero. Okay. What happened? People stopped their saving in banks. The number of premature withdrawals has risen, and the number of demat accounts has gone up more than proportionately. So people are shifting. But as long as income rises. So you need to raise incomes fast, and you need to provide the proper incentives for people to save.
Don't you think that it's too simplistic a relation that we need to raise the income, that will raise the saving, and ultimately that will translate into investment? How can we raise that income?
No, once you save, what will you do? When you have savings, you'll put it in a bank. After that, you have lost control over your savings. You will get it back 3 years later. But the bank doesn't keep your savings for 3 years. It lends it out as credit. All you have to do is save and go to the bank. Then the rest will take over. Also, we need to really revisit our calculations on the role of foreign savings. At a certain level of income, at a certain level of exports, at a certain level of reserves, maybe 3% was the danger line. As we become a larger and larger economy and more open, with more access to capital markets across the world, maybe 3% can go to 4% or 5%.
Thank you for an excellent presentation. I really enjoyed it. I think the entire audience has enjoyed it. I had a question about international issues. Since that was cast, I'll just flip quickly. I thought I'll ask you to perform some your comments. One is you rightly focused on manufacturing going up to 25%. But reality of India, whatever we try, even the days of Ambedkar also said that don't romanticize with villages and don't romanticize with agriculture. Urbanization is our ultimate. But reality is 57% rural population, 50% depending on agriculture. I don't know how many years it will take to bring down to this level which is less than 10% depending on agriculture. It may take many years. So in the interregnum, there has to be solid agenda for agriculture. So it has to be agriculture industry mix, and you would appreciate in terms of value addition, we are one of the lowest in agriculture in the world. So why do we position that value added agriculture? We see winds of change in terms of agriculture exports. But should you only be supplying raw material to the rest of the world, just like Odisha does? Supply only manpower and minerals. We should be doing that. And how do we position that value addition in agriculture and improve the? We are number one in many items in agriculture, but in terms of productivity, if you see, we are not really that great. Of course, there are areas we are doing wonderful, but there are many areas our productivity much less than the global average. So, what could be the agenda for that? Because this is the reality. This is one, if I can add one more question. India 2048, maybe before that, will be the largest economy in the world, second or first largest economy. But the India consists of states. So you have any state-specific suggestion for state like Odisha, if you can give it with respect? Thank you.
On the first, I just can't add, and he has been our deputy governor, and internationalization of the rupee was in his backyard. So I can't add. I think he has given us the formula how to break through this Gordian knot and go into true internationalization. This is exactly what we need to do. Add value to agriculture. Position ourselves to send out high technology agriculture items. I think we are already doing some irradiation of onions, etc. in our exports, and that I think is what he alluded to. That is the mix we want. But one thing that I think will change the narrative is this one district, one export scheme, where GI tags are being given for the simplest. I recently went to Lakhimpur Kheri, and there they are taking these banana trees, and from the fiber they are creating such beautiful rugs. I think Prime Minister also mentioned this in his Mann Ki Baat. But that's the way to go, I think. I can't visualize what else needs to be done, but I'm seeing a lot of benefits from this district. Thank you very much.